Okay, so today we're going to break down prophylactic non-valvular atrial fibrillation due to the thrombotic effect. Okay, so let me break this down. Prophylactic, this pretty much works. Non-valvular atrial fibrillation, non-valvular atrial fibrillation, and this is going to be due to the thrombotic effect. Okay? Or in this case, the atrial fibrillation is what's going to lead to this thrombotic effect, which we'll break down in a second. Okay, so let's break down what is this thrombotic effect. Throughout our body, we have blood vessels, right? We have venules, we have arterioles, we have veins, we got arteries. And so we're going to break down what these blood vessels do. So throughout our body, these blood vessels transport, they're our highway system for transporting oxygen, blood, nutrients, whatnot, right? It contains plasma, a whole bunch of other interesting things. And it becomes interstitial fluid. But for right now, we have our blood vessels, and this is what we have covered with endothelial cells. Endo, meaning like through, so it's going to be like the inner lining of these vessels. And remember, it's our highway system. So it's what's going to transport blood, oxygen, and all these nutrients throughout our body. These vessels are vital for our body to have the nutrients it needs to be able to survive. And oxygen, right? So we have these blood vessels going throughout our body, living day to day, living on the phone. However, we have a point by which these blood vessels can break. And this is what I think is called like an aneurysm, or an aneurysm where it can lead to damage within these blood vessel walls, right? And what is the risk of our blood vessel walls breaking? Blood can spill out, which is not good. We don't want blood to spill out. If blood spills out, then we're not going to be able to provide enough oxygen to the muscles needed, to our brains, organs, whatnot, and that's how we lead to death. So we have this process. We have what's called collagen. We have open collagen, and this invites von Willebrand's factor. Von Willebrand factor. So it's collagen invites von Willebrand factor, and this von Willebrand factor invites a whole bunch of different enzymes and molecules that help create coagulation. Okay, it's a process called coagulation. So we have our collagen, right, and we have our von Willebrand factor, and it's going to invite thrombin. Prothrombin maybe. It's going to invite enzymes and other molecules in order for us to create this fibrin mesh. Because what we have fibrinogen. Fibrinogen is just part of this cascade process of them becoming fibrin. And fibrin overall is this network that creates this fibrin mesh and creates what we call coagulation, which is a process of blood clots. And this is what's going to allow us to avoid any sort of excessive blood leaving our vessels, right? Because if we don't have coagulation, we're going to bleed out and we're going to die, and it's not awesome. Okay, so we need coagulation in order for us to protect our vessel walls and protect us from excessive bleeding. However, if we have too much coagulation, then we can lead to a blockage of our blood flow and lead us to not getting oxygen as well, causing us to death. Okay? And so I want you to imagine it as if we have a river. We have a river, okay? So these rivers is going to be, so we have our ecosystem, of course, right? Right now we have a happy ecosystem. This ecosystem relies on this river for transports of sediments, rocks, fish, all this. It's vital. Without this river, there's no life, okay? So everything's flowing in a certain direction. However, at the end of this river, we have a waterfall. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be at the end of this waterfall. I want to stay along the river path. I want to live my life happily ever after. So, nature provides us a solution. And nature provides us beavers. provides us beavers. What are these beavers going to do? These beavers are going to create dams. And so these dams are going to make sure that people such as I that are floating along this river don't leave into the waterfall, but instead go through the pathway of hopefully maybe to the destination we're trying to go at. Okay. So this is good. Now think of this as a blood vessel. This dam is the coagulation factor that avoids any sort of excessive bleeding and allows us to live happily ever after. Right? So that's it, right? No. Just like with anything, too much of anything is not great. Too much coagulation or too much dams can lead to a blockage. Let's say the dam is this big. What could happen? Well, our original blood flow going up here can be blocked. And so just like a river, if we have too much of a dam, we can't travel, right? We're stuck. And this creates excessive buildup. This creates, like, I'm assuming the accumulation of probably antigens as well as blood pooling. And so in this case with the river, too much buildup is going to have a huge impact towards its ecosystem. The ecosystem's not going to be able to live normally. If the water's affected, the trees are going to be affected as well as just the entire ecosystem. This creates a huge impact, and the ecosystem won't be able to live normally. Same thing here. If in this case, if we don't have simply pathway of flow for oxygen, our blood and the hemoglobin and the oxygenated blood, then we're screwed, right? And so this can be caused by our next thing. It's called atrial fibrillation. Now, what the hell is atrial fibrillation? Okay, so we went over what the thrombotic effect is. The thrombotic effect is like a what I'm guessing thrombogenesis. I don't know, the creation of thrombin. I was going to say thrombolysis or thrombolysis, but that's the destruction. Lysis, destruction. However, okay, so atrial fibrillation. We're going through the thrombotic effect. Now, this thrombotic effect is going to be caused by atrial fibrillation. Now, what the hell is atrial fibrillation? I still don't have the my heart anatomy memorized, so this will run freaking. So, So for fun, let's break down the heart. Why not? Just so that we can force as well. And so this is going to be a very brief anatomy of the heart. We're not going to go really in depth upon it because we're not trying to show how dumb we are right now. We're trying to just look smart a little bit. And no, just because it'll just take forever and I still got freaking other homework to do. But kind of got lost. Yeah. Okay, so and this is not going to be part of the lecture, but let's kind of just like break down what the whole circulation system is of the heart, and then we'll electrical signals and where atrial fibrillation comes in, right? So what's the outside layer? The outside layer is going to be called the pericardium. Pertaining to the heart, pertaining to around to around the heart. Then we got the myocardium, but it's somewhere around here. The myocardium, myo means muscle, card means heart, and means pertaining to. So pertaining to the muscular part of the heart. This is going to be vital for our contraction. And then we have the endocardium. Oh, we actually have the epicardium right under. The epicardium is actually before the myocardium. Epi, that means like through. And then we have endocardium. Endocardium is going to be the inner lining. We're not going to put that in here because whatever. Okay? So we have what's called the superior vena cava. Okay, we have the superior vena cava. Then we got the inferior vena cava. Okay. And then we have we should have the coronary sinus. Yeah, we have coronary sinus. Okay, we have the coronary sinus. Let's break down. We have the tricuspid valve. We got the semilunar, pulmonary semilunar valve, and then we got the so tricuspid. Let's just put it here. We got the tricuspid valve, and so I'm gonna break in a second semilunar pulmonary valve. And then we got the semilunar pulmonary valve, and then we should have the fucking aortic semilunar valve. Yeah, I think it's aortic. And then we have, I think, yeah, the aortic semilunar valve is what leads to. Okay, so here we have the superior vena cava, and then we got. I'm missing a couple. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Then we got the left pulmonary artery. The left pulmonary artery. Okay. And then we got the freaking left pulmonary veins. Why did I forget these guys? Okay, left pulmonary veins. I'm pretty sure these are all the. And then here, we'll just say, just because we're too lazy, this is part of the abdominal aorta. This leads us to the rest of the body. Too short to freaking reach that. Okay? So, we're looking at the heart right here, right? We have the superior vena cava. The superior vena cava is going to come from, is what's going to lead to deoxygenated blood coming from the upper body. This is going to be from the right and left subclavian, right and left subclavian artery. Okay. Then we have, of course, from then on, we have the superior vena cava that takes it from basically the upper body of deoxygenated blood. Then we have the coronary sinus. The coronary sinus, like I said, the heart contracts, right? The heart contracts specifically from the myocardium, the muscle layer of the heart. And so this myocardium is going to need oxygen in order for it to be able to pump nutrients out the heart. And in return, it's going to return deoxygenated blood. So the coronary sinus is going to take blood from the myocardium and bring it back into the right ventricle. So we just say myocardial DL blood. Okay, you got myocardial DL blood. And then from that on, we have the inferior vena cava. The inferior vena cava is going to take it from the inferior. So it's just, I don't really need, but like from the legs and whatnot, the inferior vena cava is going to take blood from the lower limb of the body. Okay? So through this now, we kind of go a little bit of the process of where this deoxygenated blood comes from. So throughout our body, we had deoxygenated blood that was once oxygenated blood, goes throughout our body. And so it can either come from the superior vena cava, which comes from our right and left subclavian arteries, and can come through the inferior vena cava, which can come from the inferior part of our body, or it can come from the coronary sinus, which can come from the constant contraction that's going throughout our heart in order for us to freaking live. Remember, the heart has 3 values, which is blood pressure, blood circulation, as well as making sure that we stay alive through contraction. Okay, so through these systems, it goes into what we have first is the right aorta. And through this right aorta, it will go through this tricuspid valve. So this is the blood flow. It'll go through this tricuspid valve, and then it'll go to the right ventricle. Okay, go through the right ventricle. Through the right ventricle, it will then go through the semilunar pulmonary valves. Remember, what are valves? Before I go any further, valves are what's going to allow us to, it's going to open and close. That's going to allow for the transportation of blood to go from specifically the aortas into the ventricles. Okay, and that's where it goes into the rest of the system. So it goes from the right ventricle, then it goes into the semilunar pulmonary valves, and the semilunar pulmonary valves is what's going to lead to the only arteries within our system that carry deoxygenated blood. It's going to go into the pulmonary arteries, and from the pulmonary arteries, this is where it goes into our lungs, and through our lungs, this is where we have the release through capillaries and what's called alveoli. We have the release of deoxygenated blood, carbon dioxide. Okay. And then this is where we have the whole system of oxygenated blood going through our body. We breathe in oxygen. This is where it goes to the alveoli, which is within the capillaries, whatnot, through our lungs. Through our lungs, then it will specifically go into our left pulmonary veins. Our left pulmonary veins are the only veins within our body that carry oxygenated blood. Right? It goes into the left pulmonary veins. And so through these left pulmonary veins, it's going to go into what we have is our left aorta. So remember, our right side is what's going to carry deoxygenated blood, and our left side is what's going to carry oxygenated blood, the left aorta. And so what do we know about the left aorta? Well, of course, with our valves, it's going to open and close and allow for the passage of blood from one part of the body to go to another part of the body. So the left aorta is going to go from the left part of the heart into the left ventricle. Okay, the left ventricle. So it's going to go from the left aorta into the left ventricle. And from then on, it's going to go from the left ventricle, and it's going to go into what's called our aorta. Aorta is what's going to be vital, and it's going to lead to the rest of the system for the body to take in oxygenated blood. Okay. So we got our left aorta, left ventricle, and this is where it's going to go into the what's called the aortic semilunar valve. So let's go look at the valve real quick one more time. On the right, we have the tricuspid valve. The tricuspid valve leads to the semilunar pulmonary valve, I'm pretty sure. The semilunar pulmonary valve, then later on, as we take in oxygenated blood, goes into the aortic semilunar valve. So we have a bicuspid valve. I'm not fully sure where that freaking... Yeah, we also have our bicuspid valve. Sorry guys, got a little ahead of myself. Bicuspid valve, I'm pretty sure, like I said, I'm just freestyling this. Bicuspid valve is what's going to take from the left aorta into the left ventricle. And then we have the aortic semilunar valve. The aortic semilunar valve is what's going to allow for the aorta to take in the oxygenated blood. And in this, I guess in this image, it's going to go to the rest of the body, right? It's going to have a whole bunch of arteries and whatnot that's freaking have to memorize that I'm still struggling with. But it's going to go to the rest of your body. And the aorta has multiple branches. It has what's called the first one, which is the ascending branch. The ascending aorta. Then you go into the thoracic aorta. The thoracic aorta to the abdominal aorta. To the descending aorta. To the abdominal aorta, where the abdominal aorta will release the rest of the body to the blood. Okay. So now that we kind of got the idea of the anatomical picture of the heart. Let's kind of just bring it down a little bit. Why is this important? Why is this important in general what we're talking about regarding atrial fibrillation? Because we kind of got an idea of the blood flow way. And so let's kind of go into the nodes real quick. We have the SA node. And we have I think the AV node. I think what the AV node is probably right here, which I think it leads to like a bunch. But basically, then we have Purkinje fibers. Purkinje fibers are vital when it comes to finishing off this electrical signal that starts off with the SA node. The SA node can also be called, is filled with cells, specifically called pacemaker cells. Okay, so let's say the SA node. That's pacemaker cells. And so what we know about the pacemaker? Pacemaker is what's going to allow the electrical signaling to go through our heart. So pacemaker cells. The SA node is filled with pacemaker cells. And so we have this electrical signal that goes on through our heart. So we have a rhythm. We have a rhythm of electrical signal going through our heart, and this is what's going to cause contraction of the myocardium. However, what's the issue in this case with atrial fibrillation? Now, I'm going to give kind of that brief analysis, or that brief overview of what that river is like. So remember how I said that we have this marker is going out? Remember how we have that river? And in this case, there's going to be too many dams. Damn, just tell those beavers, stop giving so much of the dam, you know? And so, like I said earlier, this is what's going to allow for kind of a pooling of nutrients, as well as fish, as well as a bunch of other things, okay? And so the issue with this is, what does this also cause? This causes abnormal rhythm of the water. This causes the current to not have necessarily a fluid direction of where to go, and causes pooling, and overall leads to what we have for the heart. It's called arrhythmia. Arrhythmia, a normal rhythm of the heart. So in the same here, the atrial fibrillation, and so like the water, the current's going to go here, it's going to go here, it's not going to have a freaking path of where to go. And same thing with the heart. When we have what's called atrial fibrillation is when there's abnormal. I really gotta get a pen. Oh, it's better right now. Atrial fibrillation is when everything is this is going everywhere. And since it's going everywhere, the heart is kind of like vibrating and going in a an unmannered way of which it's contracting. And so, atrial fibrillation is the lack of normal rhythm of the heart due to arrhythmia. There's also dysrhythmia. Let me just write that down, arrhythmia. I'm about to erase this anyways. I guess this is what math. Arrhythmia. And so, this abnormal heart rhythm is going to cause issues. And specifically, how does this have to do with anything with what we're talking about? Arrhythmia can lead to blood clot formation, especially in the appendage of the left artery. And so, this blood clot formation is, so this, the atrial fibrillation causing blood clot formation is exactly how they tie together. The prophylactic non-valvular atrial fibrillation leads to the thrombotic effect, which is the process by which we have blood clot formation in the heart because of a lack of proper contraction, leading to lack of blood flow. And what happens if there's a lack of blood flow? Then there's a lack of oxygen being transported to the muscles and other parts of the body that are vital in order for us to live. Okay? So, brief overview, back of what we're going at. I kind of had to flip them to connect them. Non-valvular atrial fibrillation is a process by which the heart is having arrhythmia, a normal heart rhythm. This is obviously bad because then this will lead to the thrombotic effect, which is too much coagulation. Coagulation will lead to buildup, and when you have buildup within the heart, what we know about the heart, it controls blood pressure, drives for contractions, as well as the transportation of oxygen, deoxygenated blood. If we have our pulmonary arteries that are blocked in the portal vessels, right? That's going to cause an issue for the rest of our body and can lead to the next thing. So now we know what that thrombotic effect is, and we know what atrial fibrillation is. So what's the issues with having, obviously there's an issue. I wouldn't have brought it up all this time if there wasn't no issue. So what's the issue with having a lack of blood flow going throughout the body? Well, this can lead to a whole bunch of, just like our ecosystem, a whole bunch of issues, such as not receiving oxygen to certain parts of the body. Let's just say even the brain, right? We have our semilunar, not semilunar, we have our subclavian arteries, we have subclavian veins, and so we have, let's say our brain. What's going to happen if the brain is not receiving oxygen? It's going to go into fucking stroke. Or you also have your thromboembolism. What is it? I think it's thromboembolism. I don't know, but we can also that's also going to lead to a lack of oxygen going to other parts of the body, and cause issues. So you're like, well, you're telling me this. Is there a solution? Well, what'd you know? There is a solution. Who would have known? There's a solution to a problem. The solution. The solution is Anticoagulants. Anticoagulants are going to be huge. We need these anticoagulants. That's right now. And so for today, what we'll be looking at, what are anticoagulants? What's going to be on the menu today? There's a whole bunch, but we're going to look at NOACS, new, what's it, new onset, new, let me see, what's it? One second. How did I forget it? I forgot like the name of the freaking. I can't believe I forgot the name. New. Okay, I was like, I thought that's what it was, but new oral anticoagulants, right? So we have new oral anticoagulants. We think of for right now, we're gonna go through apixaban. We got argatroban, dabigatran, argat. Damn, I can't spell. I got dabigatran. Then we got heparin. We got low molecular weight heparin. And we got unfractionated or high molecular weight heparin. And then we got good old warfarin. Okay. So, look at this new oral anticoagulants. What are the upsides and downsides? New oral anticoagulants. Well, the upsides, they're very quick, low effect. What I mean by that, they run on quickly. The process by which it occurs happens really fast. The same thing, it wears off very quickly as well. Onset, offset. Let's say onset, offset. Okay, offset. Can be a replacement for heparin. Yeah, be a replacement for heparin. Heparin is can be used very similar in the same way, or it can be used for a very short-term effect. What else? Upsides. I think most of them have an antidote. And I think I read like pharmacokinetics. So like they all have an antidote, I'm pretty sure, and they also have they're very easily managed. Where you don't have to do no INR testing or PT testing. So no INR or PT testing. Okay. And then also, so INR and PT testing, that's going to be something where it's like regarding how easily your blood coagulates. So there's no INR or PT testing. The very quick onset offset, it can be used in replacement of heparin. And there's antidotes. But what are the downsides? The downsides, as you would know, they're new. So the effects of what can be on possible other diseases are really limited. So I say limited research. Okay, limited research. They can't be used for valvular atrial fibrillation. So we have non-valvular atrial fibrillation, which means that the diseases aren't pertaining to the valves for the atrial fibrillation. But so they can't be used for non-valvular atrial fibrillation. However, in this case, or they can't be used for valvular atrial fibrillation. In this case, though, since we're using non-valvular atrial fibrillation, they can be used. Okay. So limited research, it has limits. What else? What else could be an issue with taking in nuanced anticoagulants? They're more expensive. So honestly, they're a great alternative. But if you're trying to go for like more cheaper, or from more of your choice, the more expensive. So downsides, limited research, more expensive, and there's probably a whole bunch of other aspects to it as well. But right now, those are what I would say is the main key terms for new oral anticoagulants. Then this is like a Pixmed, or Gotravant, or Dabigatran, pretty sure. And we got a whole bunch of it. So many, and I'm just not gonna freaking go over that today, or even just think about it. Then we got heparin. We got low molecular weighted heparin and high molecular weighted heparin. What's the difference between low molecular weighted heparin and high unfractionated heparin or high molecular weighted heparin? The difference is low molecular weighted heparin and both high molecular weighted heparin are consistent of a pentasaccharide. However, the difference is that low molecular weight heparin has a smaller tail, which is called a glycosaminoglycan, in comparison to the bigger tail of the unfractionated heparin. So you're like, well, why does it freaking matter that they have a tail? Well, I guess it doesn't. Everybody matters. But with unfractionated heparin, when you have that longer tail, it's able to have a greater effect on the cascade of coagulation, specifically the factors. I'm pretty sure low molecular weighted heparin only affects factor 2. Remember, we have this cascade effect when we have coagulation. It goes in factor 2, it gets from like thrombin, the enzyme, goes into affecting making other factors. And this factors then end up making fibrinogen, fibrin, makes these fibrin mesh, or not. So, with low molecular weighted heparin, and this can go on upsides and downsides. It's like switching on and off, or at least. So you're really trying to get like a big bang for your buck. Unfractionated heparin has a bigger effect than low molecular weighted heparin. Okay? Low molecular weighted heparin can be used for pregnant women. It's a very short onset offset effect, same thing as new oral anticoagulants. So that means that it can wear off really fast as well as be applied to very fast, which is good, right? Because if you're in a case of an emergency, then you want to use heparin in order for you to be able to utilize or to be safe from dying, right? Downsides. It relies on your liver and the state of your kidneys. What do I mean by that? So what do we know about our kidneys? Going down, I'm just gonna break down. We have our kidneys. This is a really horrible picture of it. We have our adrenal glands, of course. Then we got our intestines and duodenum, genum, ileum, whatever. Within our kidneys, though, what do we know about our kidneys? Our kidneys are what secrete proteins, not secrete proteins. You don't want to secrete proteins, as well as glucose and whatnot. We have proteinuria. We got, I think what's called glycosuria. I'm not fully sure, but right, we have our urinary system. We got your urethras, whatnot. You lead into your urethra where we piss out. And then we also have our liver. I'm just gonna run a little circle here because why not? So. Part of really understanding the whole process of heparin is heparin relies on specifically antithrombin 3, right? Heparin binds onto antithrombin 3 in the liver produces antithrombin 3. It binds to antithrombin 3, and then this is where it happens this whole cascade of eliminating this coagulation. So it relies on antithrombin 3 produced by the liver. So what does that mean? That means that if the liver is not producing antithrombin 3, then we're not able to go on with this process of coagulation or anticoagulation. It's not able to limit this coagulation process. Same thing with the kidneys. Why does the kidneys have to do with this? Well, because if the kidneys are messed up, we have what's called nephrons. These nephrons have afferent arterioles and it has what's called a glomerulus, which accepts about like 20% of the nutrients that's within your body. Or 20% of the nutrients within the blood that comes in through millimeters of mercury of pressure. But, however, if our nephrons aren't filtrating the nutrients properly that's going throughout our kidneys, then a possible implication is that can piss out proteinuria. And if it pisses out protein, one of those enzymes could be antithrombin 3. Okay? So it's a very brief overview of what that is, but the liver and your kidneys are vital in terms of the production of or quality of that. And if you can't do that, then it's screwed. Another downside, we have heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. Okay, what's the issue with this? Heparin-induced thrombocytopenia is basically when we, instead of anticoagulation, cause a coagulation effect. And this is because through your spleen, your heparin binds onto frickin' some sort of molecule, and your spleen then produces antibodies, and this excessive antibody can lead to a coagulation effect. So this is very rare, but heparin-induced thrombocytopenia can be a result in which it produces more coagulation factors instead of reducing it. One more thing, heparin. I'm pretty sure it's only an IV pill. Right? So heparin can't be used. It makes it more difficult for someone to be able to live their life normally when using heparin, because it is something where you have to get injected. But I'm pretty sure it's low molecular weight heparin can be used for like long-term effects. But that's why I say heparin is more of like for short-term, because it's not something that you would use long-term in comparison to something like warfarin, which we'll go into. Warfarin. What the hell is warfarin? Oh, this is the big guy. I'm pretty sure, so heparin also positive effect. It's been studied well since 1935. I think warfarin, it's like 1955 or something like that. But warfarin, what are the upsides and downsides? Upsides. It's been researched for a bit now. It's, I think, the most researched anticoagulant of all of them. Okay. It can be used for valvular atrial fibrillation, which I guess in our case doesn't really matter because we're using non-valvular atrial fibrillation. What else? The upsides. There's a whole bunch of upsides. Let me just see if I maybe made a list of them. Oh, yeah. So it can be taken subcutaneously, meaning that we can ingest it through like a pill form. And I'm not going to write all this because I'm too bored. Or yeah, I'll just say subcutaneously. And then most importantly, especially in this economy, they're cheap, very cheap in comparison to new oral anticoagulants. Okay? So they're very cheap, most researched, and they can be taken subcutaneously, and also can be used basically for valvular atrial fibrillation. Okay, what are the downsides? Oh, last thing, it's a greater cascade effect, which means that it's able to the upsides is that it can be subcutaneously used, so it can be used for more long term, but it also does have a greater cascade effect, which can also go down to our downsides. Since it has a greater cascade effect, let's say great. So it has a great cascade effect. This also puts us at a risk of having potential side effects if it doesn't work properly. There is an issue by which it causes like necrosis to our skin because it can cause coagulation. Also another process, it relies on heparin, or we need heparin. Well, why do we need heparin? Well, because as we use warfarin, what it does is actually creates excessive coagulation at the beginning, and then that's when it reduces coagulation. This is the problem because as we have these process of coagulation, we make protein CNS. Protein CNS are vital when it comes to inhibiting coagulation, and so that's good, right? However, when we take warfarin, it also inhibits protein CNS. So if you inhibit the inhibitor, then you're basically going to create an upstream of coagulation. That's not good. So in order for us to reduce this effect, we use heparin in the short term until warfarin kicks in. And I think it takes 2-3 days for warfarin to actually kick in before you see its effects. So it relies on heparin because we need to take heparin first with warfarin. we take heparin, and then, well, we take heparin with warfarin so that this little part of the warfarin cycle isn't affected with excessive coagulation. And then, just for today, the last thing that could be dangerous about taking warfarin is that it does have a lot of interference with other drugs, and you do have to do INR testing and PT testing, which means you have to check through how easily your blood clots and the time by which it clots, right? So, I would say warfarin, it's cheaper to take in subcutaneously, and it's the most well-researched drug out of all of them, pretty sure. However, the issues is that it does basically, while you're getting more bang for your buck, it does have greater side effects. So you need a provider or you need a doctor that really knows what they're doing when prescribing warfarin, because they do have greater effects if not used properly. If they take INR, PT testing, heparin can cause, I'm pretty sure, there is kidney issues and possible gastrointestinal bleeding. However, just like with anything, there comes a risk with doing something that's long term or can be anything beneficial can be harmful. You just need to apply it, especially more careful with warfarin in comparison with with the new oral anticoagulants and heparin. Okay, so I think at the end of this, we found out that, let's say that this person has prophylactic, so long-term, non-valvular. So all these drugs can be used. Atrial fibrillation, in which atrial fibrillation, the heart is going crazy, causing this thrombotic effect. So in return, what do we do to solve this issue? We use anticoagulants. We use anticoagulants to reduce this issue. And in this case, now we think, what type of anticoagulant we're going to prescribe? Well, in this case, since it is non-valvular, any of these options are fine. You don't necessarily have to worry about it. I'd say that if you're trying to try the new thing, like a Piximab or Gotchaban, of course there are specifics and whatnot, which I freaking don't know. But what I'd say is that with new oral anticoagulants, it is more expensive, but you do have to do a lot less monitoring. When it comes to heparin, there's low molecular weighted heparin, which can be used more for longer term in comparison to also unfractionated heparin, which is really interesting. They come from pig intestines, by the way. With heparin, they are really good for that short-term effect, right? And then we have warfarin. Warfarin is really good for long-term. However, it does come with more needed warrant of carefulness. So but it's cheaper too. So if you're really trying to get more bang for your buck, that something you can use long-term, warfarin will be your option. Okay? So that's it for today. I was just doing this presentation to kind of like practice my knowledge upon anticoagulants, as well as atrial fibrillation and its effects upon specifically like actual potentials. Maybe I'll do something again. Maybe look more like the potassium sodium gradient and whatnot. For today though, yeah, that's anticoagulants, that's atrial fibrillation, and that's the thrombotic effect that can come with it. Hopefully obviously a lot of what I said probably was wrong. Like I said, this is just something for me to study and practice explaining, because I feel like explaining has a huge impact towards your knowledge of something. Hopefully you enjoyed, and yeah, have a great day.